Okay, here I am for kind of an intermission podcast. Gonna share some financial info about Anonymous Agony. Man. Not that I wanted to touch any of this again, but considering the drama with the old devs, honestly, the only thing I can say is nobody should really believe either side, because it's the internet. You can't really prove anything. But when it comes to people I work with, everybody on the team, because it was our first game, so I made it abrasively clear it's only going to be paid via royalty payment. And everybody agreed to that, minus a few people that got paid before their work. Like, I remember at one point it was mentioned that I had an invoice that was unpaid. Well, yeah, I did not pay the invoice, but I also didn't get the work done. And I didn't expect the work to be done until I paid the invoice. So past that, that's all I'm going to say about that. Steam, like we have Steam set up to only pay out when it reaches a $500 threshold. And Steam, before the Mandalore video and before the popularity blew up a bit, it had only paid out one time. You have to remember this game was sold for $5 for like a few months, then $3 for about a year, and then $1 just recently. So payment for Anonymous Agony paid out one time. It hasn't even paid out a second time yet. It's going to, though. I should be showing some Steam payment records right now. As you see, it's made around $1,007. 400. It's probably more than that now, because I'm going to be looking at the page after recording this. About half of what this game has made, lifetime of being on sale for a year and a half, 2 years, was made last week, or this last week. Half the profit has been made. So people saying they haven't gotten paid, but they haven't really waited long enough to get paid. Like, I'm still learning how to dish out royalty payment, but as far as I've gathered, I plan to send out royalty payment when it reaches a threshold every 6 months. So about to get paid for the second time, and it's still all sitting there. So this should make it very obvious how much money AA's made and what the timeline looks like. So nobody can say anything really past that. Before I do work with anybody, voice actors, artists, I always sign contracts. And like with everybody I work with, we agreed on and signed contracts for royalty payment and agreed on a set percentage. So everything's gone according to plan. Like, the only bad thing is I just haven't made it very fast. From the beginning, I was the only one working in the engine directly and making all the scenes in the towns and crap. So it's probably why it's glitchy too, because it was me doing that shit by myself for the first time. Johnny did help make some scenes before he was let go, but he didn't really make full scenes. All he knew how to do was insert text in the engine with the face art popping up. So he did that. He did about 40 scenes of that in File 2, and that's about it, except for that brief period. As for the Kickstarter money, well, 2K of it is still sitting around because I need to use it for future art assets. But the main script needs to be finished completely first so I can actually know what I need and how much I can afford to do. I mean, I'm going to get all the art I need for all the characters I need regardless. I'll just pay whatever I don't have out of pocket. So, yeah, art takes up the biggest amount of money resource. Followed only by music licensing, I guess. I also had to license some tile sets and art. It all went towards the game, so. And I know actual companies, they release sales figures publicly, so here it is, unofficially. I'm going to probably make a post on the Kickstarter, and once I create a website, post the sales twice a year, every 6 months, post the sales publicly so people can see what the game made, etc., etc. You know, Steam takes out some taxes. It just hasn't made very much. Hopefully it'll change, but it also wasn't sold for very much. I mean, it was only episode 1 of a long game, so I wasn't going to sell it for more than $5, and I dropped that down to $3. That being said, File 2 will not be free when it first releases. It'll be $2.99 like File 1 was for about a year. But by the end, File 2 and 1 will be free and act as demos for each protagonist. Like I said, I'm up to File 6 with the work, but from that point on, the scenes and development is a lot more complicated. A lot more complex things happen, so it's going to start taking me a lot longer to make it, which is why I gave myself a 2-year time limit. Because especially the last 4 files are going to take a long time to develop, just because I'm doing it in the engine alone for the most part. But I always did do that, so So any team members in the future that do work with me and join us will either be paid up front before their work or agree to royalty payment via contract, which is legally binding. So, I mean, that's what I always did. You can't work for anybody without getting that out of the way first. That being said, I was never good at the business aspect of game design or organization. Like, I learned that very slowly. It's never been my prowess, which is why I had to bring in another co-manager to handle that for me, because I'm not good at it. I get confused, distracted, messy. My desktop is a mess. It's insane how much crap I have everywhere. It's just how I am, which is kind of silly because my computer's a huge mess and unorganized, but my home is always organized. So I don't know why I can't just do that digitally too. It doesn't really make any sense. And I'm still glad about all the comments and attention AA is getting for being as bizarre of a game as it is. Of course, Hayes' side was always more bizarre than Samson's side. Samson's side is a lot more grounded. And in fact, somebody on the team, Diana Cantor, she wrote some of the lyrics for the music. When she was reading the script, she told me right out she liked Samson's side better. It's much more easy to digest. I wanted to, at some point, to make it so you didn't have to play both characters, both sides. You could either only play Hayes' and skip Samson's, the psychologist side, or vice versa. I still want to give people that option. So honestly, everybody can play file 1 and 2 when they're out and see which side they like and only play one. In game, I'm probably going to give players the option to skip one side of the story if they want, or play it all together, like one file after another. I did write it specifically so if you only played Hayes' story or Samson's story, you saw things a little differently. And it even different still if you played back and forth each character one file after another. So that's going to be an option for people when the full game is out that I want you to do. I want you to do either option you want to and feel comfortable doing. The story will be seen pretty differently depending on what you choose. I've written a lot of games, and I plan to keep making games for the rest of my life. Anonymous Agony was kind of like a project I was doing to learn how to do it. It was like my first attempt. And it's been a learning curve, trust me, a huge learning curve. But one thing my stories all have in common is I always write something that's not really fit into a genre. Subject matter-wise, Anonymous Agony is the heaviest game I have written and plan to write. I'm not sure why I chose to do it first, but I just did. Everything I've written after Anonymous Agony has been much lighter. But all my writing, all my games don't really fit into a genre. I purposely try to blend together genres or make it unsure what genre it is, even if it is leaning towards one direction. I just find it more organic that way. It's like that. The way I approach storytelling is going to be the same as I did it in Anonymous Agony, just in the way that I present the characters as being imperfect, their quirkiness, kind of breaking stereotypes or adding layers to stereotypes that shouldn't exist. That's the only way I find it possible to write an organic story. Make the villain Hayes likable in some aspects, make the hero Samson unlikable and flawed in some aspects. The story of Anonymous Agony was always supposed to be Dr. Samson and Hayes because their mindsets and mentalities play off each other. If I could go back and do it differently, I would have released File 1 and 2 together. Of course, I didn't even really release File 1 when it first got played. It was leaked. So, but I would have done both of them side by side. I even planned at one point to, instead of releasing individual files, release them in pairs. File 1/2, 3/4. That way you'd have both sides. But because AA was my first game and I'm still learning, and there's always a point in the development process where I have to do something complicated scene-wise or system-wise, like getting all those systems to work, like the PC and the integrated web browser and making the websites that actually link to the in-game content. And that took a lot of trial and error. That's not something you really see in an RPG Maker game. And I hate how limited RPG Maker is. So I wasn't going to use it to make a game unless I could, unless those boundaries were kind of breakable somewhat. So I don't like centering my stories, or if I write something and I want it done that way, I'm going to get it done that way, even if it takes me a long time to figure out how. File 13 specifically has a lot of visual effects. I guess I'll just say that. A lot of tricky things the engine does that I have barely learned how to do. I've tinkered with it to the point where I know it's possible, but that alone is gonna take me a long time. But that's why I announced that I wasn't gonna release the game episodically anymore, because I could release 2 files 6 months apart, 2 months apart. Then the next file could take me so much longer. So because I had to come to a realization I was still learning how to do stuff, I was always hitting walls where I had to teach myself how to do it. So I couldn't really commit to a stable release schedule. It was unwise. I wanted to, but it was just immaturity. But that's why I'm releasing it as one product, and the Anonymous Agony is still going to be seen as a test project to me. So it's going to teach me how to do everything I know how to do in the engine. I do plan to make at least one more game with RPG Maker before moving on to bigger things. I'm currently practicing with Saya. I'm not sure what this program's called. I was messing around with Blender too. I always dabble in 3D modeling as well. So I plan to move off from sprites at some point. I also had to visit a psychiatrist about my focus problems. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with severe ADD, and, my mother was the type of person that, she said, oh, that's in your head. You can willpower through it. She didn't believe in the medicine, or she didn't want me to take medicine. But then I realized as I got older, when I started Coded Emotion, I started AA, another 4 projects. It was ridiculous. And it wasn't like I was doing it on purpose. It's not like I don't plan to do them all. I've written 3 of those scripts to completion already, but I just didn't know how to focus my attention span. It was difficult, but I got that sorted out. I know now that I need to focus, and a big thing in how I focus now, because so many different games I play inspire me to make different things. Like AA has a certain handful of inspirations. My other project has a certain handful of inspirations. As much as I want to play a game that I feel like playing when I feel like playing it, I had to literally play only the stuff that served as inspiration for Anonymous Agony, that put me in that mindset, in that mood to make it. Because say I went to play one of the Atelier games, where you're like a cute little girl alchemist making exploding pies. That's not going to put me in the mindset to make Anonymous Agony. It's going to do the complete opposite. And for a while, it was hard for me to accept that, because I was like, oh, game design is something I love. I want to have fun when I want to have fun. But part of growing up and maturing and becoming a creator is your fun at playing games takes it takes a back seat forever. Forever. You play what is going to help you or put you in the right mindset to work on what you're working on. If you want to play a magical game where you throw exploding pies at monsters, do it when it's relevant to you. And I've never been able to discipline my emotions that way, to play something I don't feel like playing, because it was a passion, but it's something I had to work past. So it really did help my focus. So that alone is what helped me make so much more progress. I just had to, take my pleasure and comfort areas and just put them on the back burner. So stuff is still going smoothly. I do share occasional scenes. I'm not sure what you guys would like to see. I'm still updating the main script and design document regularly, which is, the design document and main script in progress is actually shared on one of the Kickstarter updates. It's public for anybody that wants to watch its progress. I mean, it will completely spoil the game, but in fact, I just recently finished writing chronologically all the way up until file 10. So everything after file 10 is done in bits and pieces, but everything chronologically is done up until file 10. On top of a really huge important scene at the end of file 12, the very end of it. So I've written enough about the big stuff that if you don't want to know what happens, don't read it, or just stop at file 9. And that was part of the reason I opened up development, is because, first of all, Mega Man Legends 3 did that, which that fell apart because of that. But I like the idea of that. I don't think it was right for them, obviously, but I think for me, because this was a startup project for our team, that was good for us, because, if it takes a long time for the game to come out, people are like, oh, it's never coming out, they abandon it. No, really, it's just that we're struggling to figure shit out. It's the first time we've done this. We've got all the passion and drive in the world, but we are still learning, so that only drives you so far. It can drive you not to give up, but it won't speed up the process of learning. So because I opened those up, I'm hoping people see that because of updating the script and working on it and the design document all the time, that it's still being worked on. They can have some faith in it. I've actually gotten a handful of messages about people wanting to work with me. More so voice actors. I know in the Mandalore review, the second target, Elliot K, was not voiced, and somebody messaged me asking if he could supply the voice for him for free if I found his demo reel suitable enough. He said, even if you don't find it suitable, I'll work with you, or you can work with me, or if you do like me, you can keep me around for future projects. So I responded and said, yeah, that sounds great. Let's see what you got. We'll work you through it. Just that alone takes a huge amount of professional maturity. Like, nobody wants to voice a sex offender villain in a video game. Nobody does, but anybody with, a mature, anybody with a professional maturity to them knows it's just a role. And the fact that some actors can do that, it proves how comfortable and how mature they are. So he told me that, and I was like, well, you already won a lot of respect from me just by saying that. In fact, I remember, because before I ever even got into game design, I voice acted first and kind of self-taught myself how to do that around 15. I took acting lessons, acting classes, for the sheer purpose later of just being able to help direct other people that want to do voice acting. I ended up falling in love with it, though. So I ended up falling in love with it more than game design, but I just chose game design first because I felt like I was more suited to it. And plus, I put game design first because it unifies so many different passions together. It's not just you voice acting. I mean, it's tons of voice actors, artists, music composers. So many different people are just unified together, and that's what I love about it so much. So, yeah, things are still going to proceed. I'm not ever going to quit. And, of course, it's still a learning process for me. Let's talk about File 1 a little bit. There's a lot of stuff in File 1 that people found that I didn't expect them to find. You know that side quest at the end of Day 3 about the girl with red eyes wandering around back alleys? Well, that's actually a cut character. A character I was going to put in, but decided against adding her right away. She may still make an appearance later, but I'm not sure yet. And obviously, no, her eyes are not really red. You'll figure it out. But yeah, that side quest it's on, you can't complete it. It's just, it was from a drop character. There's a passcode at the first area of the city that you can actually get successfully and get in. But it's, what's the word? It's encrypted in the game. So if you could guess that 4-digit passcode right, you could get in there and see a whole different area. But I encrypted it so people can't look in the engine and see it. And I always wanted A to be a little bit quirky, but what really helped it become quirky is the donor-created characters. I personally remember, I forget his name, but the creator of Eris and Millie. Their characters in different incarnations are actually in tons of other projects from Kickstarter that he backed. But he had so much love and passion for his characters, and he even was very willing to work with me. He said, Eris is a knight, Millie's a maid, but I know this doesn't fit your timeline, so you can make them private detectives or something. I'm sure she can't carry her sword. I was like, whoa. She can have the sword. It's okay. I'll figure that shit out. So, but he was willing to remove Eris' sword, which I think is unacceptable. I respect her as a character very much. But he was willing to adapt her, which also took maturity. So me adapting these donor characters was very difficult. At first, when the people made them, they thought they were just going to be side characters you could talk to. But no, like I should have made it more explicitly clear in the Kickstarter because it was my intention from the beginning. Those side characters were always supposed to be integrated into the main story. I already had the main cast written up and decided, but the donor created characters were completely up to the people that donated to the project. I adapted them all. Certain creators added to their characters more than others. Some people left me a lot more creative control. Some people took some of it away. But me using those other people's characters and adapting them to my world was a really fun writing exercise. And it turned out really, really good. And like I said, by the end, they're all significant. Like, I consider them all main characters, honestly. Striker ended up being particularly important by complete accident. Just because I wrote stuff naturally. That's how I did it. In fact, in the second round of Kickstarter, there was somebody else that took a tier for a created character, and the character he created was absolutely bonkers. And I'm pretty sure he was trolling me, but I was like, I rose to the challenge. I said, you know what, man? I will make this shit work somehow. Try me. I mean, honestly, the character's crazy, so I may have to actually admit defeat and tell him to tone it down. But I'm going to damn sure try. Because I may have met my match with his character. it even being partly believable. Like, I may have met my match, and if I did, I will gladly admit defeat in my adaption powers. There was a recent casting call to replace the 3 voice actors I lost. It's already been finished up and closed, but around next year, there will be one final round of auditions for the in-game characters. So if you're interested in voice acting, you can send me demos now to codedemotion@gmail.com, or just wait for the auditions. I'll share them and make a video about them. Of course, our team's also hiring. Obviously with payment contracts agreed upon first. So that's it. That's everything, I guess. Until next time, guys. Later.